In this video, I'll demonstrate how to build a report from scratch using Crystal Reports for VisualStudio.net. Now, most of the time when you sit down to design a report, you'll use one of the report designer experts like we did in the first video in this series. However, I wanted to use this as an exercise to show you the various toolbars, windows, and the designer surface and what they're capable of, so that when you go in to actually make modifications to the reports that are generated for you automatically, you have a better idea of what the tool is capable of. So to begin, I created a simple Windows Forms application called CR Blank Report. And the first thing that I'll do is go to Add a New Item, and I'll select, I know it's here somewhere, Crystal Report. I'll go ahead and leave the name the same because that's not our focus right now. We get the Crystal Report gallery that automatically pops up. However, I'm going to select a blank report and click OK. Notice that by default the Field Explorer pops out. Now if we want to get rid of that, I can simply toggle the field view. We're going to actually need this. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, start with some database fields. Notice by default I get a header, a report header, a page header, a report footer, and a page footer, and then a detail section within my new report. What I'm going to need to do is hook it up to a database, so I'm going to select database fields, or I'm sorry, actually add remove database. The database expert pops open. What you'll do is go to your ODBC and you'll select make a new connection. Double click this. It'll give you a list of data sources. Now I could have easily used a SQL Server data source, but I'm going to use the one that comes with the Crystal Reports for VisualStudio.net. I'm going to select this Extreme Sample Database. I'm going to select Next and Finish. And when I do, at this point you'll see the Extreme Sample Database appear. Now I've done it before, that's why it automatically appeared for me. And you'll see all the tables that you can expand out. And I'm going to select Customer and the Select button and click OK. And when I do, you'll notice that the Database Fields node, now you can drill down into it. Let's pull this out just a little bit. And now I'm going to drag and drop items into my designer from this area. So the first thing I'll do is the customer's name. I'm going to drop this into the detail section, and I'm going to move this over because we don't need that much space for it. Notice when I did this that it also put a corresponding label in the page header section. And let's put last year's sales as well. And so now we'll get a list of all the customers in our database and what their sales were last year. So the next thing we need to do is actually go to our form, and we're going to put a report viewer on our form. Then we'll go to our properties window and set the docking property. And then let's go ahead and make this form a little bit bigger so that we can see it clearly. And then let's also go back to our properties window and, well, I'm sorry, first of all what we need to do is go over to our toolbox and go to components and drag and drop our report document onto our design surface. So it's going to ask us to create a reference to a strongly typed report, which we do have. The report we created called Crystal Report 1. We didn't change the default name. I'm going to select OK. And we can see our instance of that strongly typed report appear in our designer tray. Now that we have this, we're going to come back and select the viewer on Form 1 and go to our Properties window and set the report source equal to our strongly typed instance of our strongly typed report, Crystal Report 1.1. Let's go ahead and save this now and click Run. And after a moment, you'll see here that we get our little form window that's resizable. Very nice. We have all the functionality of our viewer. We can go to the next page, next page. Let's go back to the first page. And notice that we have a simple list of customer names and their sales last year. Now, probably what management's going to say is, that looks great, can you improve this? And you're going to say, absolutely, what do you need? And they'll say, well, we want to spiff it up a little bit. We want to group all of the countries' sales together, and we want to be able to see a subtotal for each country. And let's put a nice little title on this report as well. So the first thing let's do is close up our database field so that we can see the other items on our report. Let's go ahead and add a group, and we're going to group by country. And we'll click OK, and notice that it adds a new section in here with the group name. And then our manager wanted a subtotal for each country as well. So to do this, let's right click and select Insert Subtotal. It pops up in the Insert Subtotal dialog box. And we're going to go ahead and click here, Insert Grand Total field. We could do this manually, but it'll do it nicely for us. And then our manager wanted a little title on the top. So let's go ahead and insert a text object. And we'll call this Sales by Country. Let's go ahead and save this. We won't have to do anything different to our WinForm that hosts the viewer, since only the report changed. So now we see we have our title, Sales by Country. It only appears on the first page because it's in our report header section. Then we see that we have for each country, let's take a look at a country that has a couple here, Australia. It tallies up the sales, and on the very last page, let's take a look and see and make sure that we have a grand total, and we do. So we hand this to our manager. Oh, and by the way, notice that we have this little navigation area too that was added whenever we added a group. The manager now takes a look at this and says, okay, it looks okay, but let's spice this up a little bit. I want a nicer title at the top. Can you do something with the fonts to kind of spice it up? And we need some spacing here because it's hard to tell where one of the numbers stop and the other one's begins, and there's just some general spacing problems. Also, can we add a page number somewhere on this, so if I get them mixed up I can find what order these go in? And you'll say, sure, I can do all that. So let's go back and make those changes. First of all, let's tackle our title and make it bigger and prettier, just like he wants. Let's make this 14, make it bold, and let's make it Arial. And we could also change up the color and a few other things, but this will work for now. Then we need to add some spacing. So the way to do this is we're going to, between the groups, go ahead and create a little space and pull this down just a little bit. And then also, let's pull this down a little bit. And although we didn't ask for it, let's go ahead and right-click on this and select Format. And what we'll do on the border on the top is add a single line. We'll click OK. And then let's also pull this down a little bit. And we'll right click on the grand total and select Format. And on this one we'll add double lines to the top. And this gives us a little preview here of what it's going to look like, and that looks great. I think you'll like that. Let's click OK. And they also wanted a page number on this report, so let's go to Special Fields, and I think there's a page number somewhere here. Great. Page number. Let's go ahead and put that off to the right hand side. And let's save it and show it to the boss again. And he says, yeah, that looks much better. Notice that we have our single line over our subtotals, that there's better spacing, that there's a page number at the bottom, and at the very end of the report we have our double line to display our grand total. And the boss takes a look at this, and at first he's pretty impressed, and then he comes to the United States very curious about the sales and says, well, these are all out of order. How do you expect me to tell what the top sales is for the United States when they're all mixed up like this? Can you sort these values? And he says, in fact, just sort everything. I want to see which country has the most sales, and I also, can you put a little chart at the top of it, like a little pie chart, so that we can see maybe the top 5 or 10 ones? And you say, of course. So let's go ahead and stop this. So let's see, what are the things that he wanted here? First of all, he wanted to sort the sales so that in the United States we'll see the top sales first. So to do this, we'll actually just select the last year's sales and then go up to our little sort order tool. Pops open our record sort order dialog box. And so we'll go ahead and select this. Notice that it has our group sorted, and then also now we have last year's sales, and we're going to select descending so we can see the highest sales first. In fact, he wanted to see all of the countries sorted by their sales. However, we can't do that from here. Let's go ahead and hit cancel. So let's go to the very top of the report. And in here, let's go ahead and insert a chart. Brings up our chart expert. I'm going to select pie. We'll get a 3D pie. It asks us for the data that we want to use, and the selections that it makes for us are just fine. We can also add in some text like the title of it and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the title completely, and I can change the fonts, but this will be just fine. Now notice when I do this that it kind of messes up our headers. So I'm going to reorder our headers by dragging, actually not by dragging, by right-clicking and selecting Move Section. And when I have this, I'm going to select header B and move it above header A, and select OK. So now let's look here. Yes, that looks correct. That's the way we want it. Now notice also that it has some kind of bogus data in here. It just puts some sample data in there by default. Nothing to worry about. Once it runs, it'll come up with the correct data. But one thing we do need to do is just exclude all the countries, because there's too many and it'll show up as too many little slices. So to do that, we're going to actually use our top N expert. So we'll select top N based on the sum of customers' last year's sales. We'll show up to 15 countries, and then the rest will just be included in the others with the name others. We'll change this to other countries. Select OK. So let's go ahead and test our report. Notice now that we have our chart, and that the United States is listed first since it's going to be the top sales, as we can see here clearly from our key that USA represents 26% of our sales, and we can see that the sales are listed in descending order. Let's see where our sales end. So $2.3 million. We can also see the other countries all kind of lumped together there. Now we could tweak this and make this look a little bit better, but I think that's pretty good for right now. You can see the power of being able to build a report from scratch, and it was pretty easy relatively. I mean, the first time I looked at the designer interface, I was like, what in the world is going on? There's just too many options here. But it all pretty much makes sense. And we'll go through even